What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 86 of Valleytown. I'm ChanManV, and joined, of course, with my partner in crime, Noxious. What's up, Noxious?
Not much, man. Coming back from a tournament casting in Toronto. Lots of meme festing going on there. That was actually really weird of a tournament. Maybe I'll touch on it later, but
Meme
good
Fest?
stuff.
Are you talking about Hearthstone, or are you talking about...
Yeah, it was a Hearthstone tournament. It was a very memey event.
Okay, good stuff. And we've got two guests on today. We've got, man, sporting the awesome hair, Frodan, our favorite caster in Hearthstone, and as well as just everything, organizer and analyst, whatever. Welcome to the show, man.
That's the first time I've ever been introduced as an analyst. Thank you, Champ.
You are an analyst. You're good enough now to be an analyst. Too,
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just I'm putting, I'll put it that way. I don't
Let
think you're
that
giving
forever
enough.
be known. I approve.
You're not giving enough credit sometimes with your knowledge. Anyways, also want to welcome Backspace to the show. We've had you on like a long time ago, right?
I think it was one of the first guests.
Yeah, you were my first guest when I did
yeah.
Pro Corner. I remember that, but I think I'm Valleytown too. Anyways, owner of Archon, manager, just all the stuff behind the scenes for Team Archon too. Welcome to the show, man.
Awesome. Hi.
All right,
Best possible way you could ever introduce yourself.
All right, so there's obviously a very specific reason why we're having Backspace on this particular episode, and it's because he has a very large Archon announcement to, I guess, release to the community. There might have been some tidbits here and there on a Mazza stream that's been that you might have been hearing if you've been watching the stream, as well as the big announcement yesterday, which is Amaz is joining Team NRG.
Yeah.
So obviously there's some news in terms of Archon, and Backspace, I'll let you take it from here. At least just kind of giving us the lowdown, and we'll ask you some questions.
You kind of said it's going to be a little raw. I don't even know how to start this off. I guess it's kind of like after ATLC, a very large amount of our players were not in agreement with the production stuff, right? Like, so during the House Cup, it was like everybody's room was turned into like a production facility, and that's like really uncomfortable for the players, right? Obviously, there was some complaints and stuff. That's, I guess, when me and Amaz started the first conversations, where we were just like, is the team worth it? Is the team not worth it? Kind of panned itself out over the next couple months, where it's just like, we're spending X number of dollars on this team, getting almost no like publicity from it type of thing. And if you compare those dollars into just a big tournament, like Amaz obviously gets way more feedback from a big tournament than he does like having the top 5 Hearthstone players on one team. That's kind of when we first started. And then like we explored a lot of options, like what Archon could be. Archon Productions was something that we are probably still doing, I think. Amaz still really likes putting on his own productions, and we still pay for a team. Like in the house right now, we still have 3 production people. The only competitive player that lives here is Delay, who is on Team Luminosity, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward with that, it was like, okay, that's totally cool. We don't have to like make a huge profit for this to be successful. In esports, I think anybody that lasts for 5 years is kind of solidified in it, right?
Yep.
I think Amaz as a streamer is already solidified, but like Amaz really likes having dual functions. Like as a streamer, in his streamer life, he streams 5 hours a day and he's bored the rest of the time, right? So he wants to have like an outside activity that like is somewhat productive, that's like his hobby, that also either makes money or breaks it even. So I think that's kind of where Archon was in that state. We did a lot of successful things in Archon, but a lot of failures in it too. But I don't know. Moving forward, I think Archon is like going to be kind of just called the Amaz company. That's just like a production company that does tournaments. Pretty much solely focused on like Hearthstone until Amaz like switches his interest into some other game. And I actually really think that was like the best business plan for us. So like honestly, between the two of us, because obviously me and Amaz talk very often and so forth. I'm the one that wanted to make this move, right? Like more than Amaz did. It took him about 4 months to actually just be like, you know what, you're right? Like, I remember like talking to him and being like, we have this amazing little kid in Nijiak on our team that we don't do anything with, right? Like how have we not sent the production company out there to like kind of film him for a week? And like, how have we not like promoted him differently? Like, I don't care if he's a streamer on Twitch. I want this kid to be super popular because he's awesome. Right. And like after having that conversation with Amaz, where he was just like, yeah, you're right. Like, you know, my day gets filled up with stuff, and like sometimes I just kind of forget that Amnesia needs promotion in a different way. Like, you know, it's really easy for most teams. It's like, oh, we're gonna sign you, start streaming, we'll tweet about you, right? Like that's like typically what a team promotion is. But when you sign a 15-year-old and like he doesn't have time to stream because he's school and stuff, like you have to take that responsibility a lot different. And the responsibilities there is like, okay, let's get him on ESPN, right? Let's get him interviewed. Let's get him like active in like small ways to take up a short amount of his time, but gives him like a career at the end of school if he wants one. Or something awesome to put on his college application. Right. And after we, that was literally the key moment that I saw everything switch from Amaz, where he was just like, you're right. This is like a moment that like Amnesiac's awesome and Amaz loves Amnesiac. And he's like, and we're not doing enough for him. So therefore, we're not going to do that. And the only thing I could offer him is like, hey, we're going to run this tournament. I'll put you in it. That was like the key moment when we decided, and I think everyone kind of noticed it like 4 or 5 months ago. It mainly started when Firebat left. And then we released like Nadia, Zalae, and so forth.
Sure.
And then after that, it was like a transition of like, do we make an announcement that Team Archon's going away and it's becoming a production company or what? Then I guess about a month ago, we started talking to Andy, the owner of NRG, who's amazing. He and Amaz actually share a lot of the same ideas of what esports is and like how to move forward in it. And they really kind of hit it off. Andy is like almost a daily interaction in Amaz's life now. And I like, it was really hard for Amaz to just like say, hey, I'm joining Team Energy, because in his mind he's losing something amazing, right? Like he was really emotional. Like, and not a lot of people could probably tell from that stream, but like, I mean, I was like watching just like, oh, poor Amaz. Oh, he's in so much pain. Yeah, you know, and then obviously there's like Rainad spams like all over the place, like Rainad 1, stuff like that. I mean, just obvious stuff.
Oh my god, yeah, of course.
yeah, just all the stuff that's gonna happen.
Totally one. You're on the Temple Storm channel right now talking.
Yeah. I mean, like all that stuff is always gonna happen, and like, but like, you know, when you're at an emotional state, that stuff hurts even more, right? But yeah, just like watching Amaz go through all that, like, kind of proud of him for continuing. Right. He'd stream today, didn't let anything affect him, which is cool. But yeah, moving forward, Energy really seems like they have the same ideas that we had, right? So one of the reasons why Amaz started the team was kind of like, he's like, hey, I'm Amaz, I'm going to do these things. And the teams were just like, we can't help facilitate you to do that. Right. Like, I mean, no teams 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago or whatever had like a production company. No teams had like, you know, like if Amaz was like,
he was on Team Liquid, right? Team Liquid didn't have a production team, no way, right?
I don't think 2 years ago, not to run a tournament. I mean, they do now. Damien is on there. He did our house tour. He's amazing. If you're watching this and you need a production guy, get Damien. He's amazing. But 2 years ago, if Amaz was like, I want to run a tournament that has a different set of rule sets, it's going to cost this much. Can you help me find sponsors? Like when you're running a team, like that's not. You're not just like, oh, okay, let me help you with that, right? Like, and that was kind of the situation Amaz was in. Not any knocks on Liquid, because Liquid's like by far one of the best orgs. It's just, you know, they didn't have everything in place to help Amaz back then. So Amaz's first goal with starting the team was actually just like to kind of fulfill his, like what he wanted to do in the space.
Right.
And the reason why he started it, because I mean, Amaz had offers from every team, right? Obviously, like every team offered him something at some point in time. But like he just thought it was better if he like was in control of his own career and all that type of stuff. Right. After talking to Andy, this is the first time I've ever seen Amaz excited like about joining a team.
Okay, that's pretty
cool. Right. Like Andy was just like, yeah, we're setting up this entire infrastructure and you could use it, right? Like that's like exactly what Amaz wants to hear, right? So him switching out of like Archon and using Andy's stuff was a really easy transition. Yeah. Maybe not so much on Twitch, maybe not so much on Reddit, but this, like, we never argued about this once. I mean, he was just like, yeah, this is going to be cool. Like, he was super excited.
Yeah, so. I mean, there's no question that Amaz, just himself and his brand is so big and successful enough that, you know, he's going to fall fine. he's not going to fall. He's going to change directions and it's going to be absolutely fine. I'm very, very confident of that. I guess what we'd like to ask you some, just a little bit more about is just really the whole team, just Hearthstone team, and we've seen some teams in the past like Hearthlytics recently. We had RJ on here, and he was talking a little bit post-mortem of about Hearthlytics, and even to yesterday or earlier today, we heard that Navi is discontinuing their Hearthstone team now too. So wanted to ask you just the challenges, because or first off, if the team was making money and you guys were having very healthy revenue, and maybe even having some success in another game too, because you guys did have a Dota team at one point.
Yeah, we did.
Would
Team was really cool.
do you see yourself, would this have eventually ended regardless because of maybe a mismatch there, or do you think this it would have changed if it was?
I can kind of fill you in on that. We were profitable for about a year and a half, and then the last 4 or 5 months we were definitely not profitable.
When you say profitable, do you mean like $100 profitable, or do you mean like
no,
like
we were
way over?
So like on the Hearthstone team we were making money, but and even on tournaments, like we were barely making money, but we were making money. But that's the thing is Amaz's time is worth way more than that profit, right? And my time is worth more than that profit too. So moving forward, just having a solely Amaz based business is just way more profitable, right? I'll give you a really good comparisons. Over the course of a year, I think we sold in between 2,100 and 2,500 Archon t-shirts, right? Over the course of 3 months, we sold, I think, 1,400 Amaz t-shirts, right? It's just not even close between which brand was worth more.
Yeah. So I guess my question was more towards, does this literally have to do with just what's most efficient in terms of making money? Okay.
Income,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the future career stuff, with me and Amaz, is kind of we want to build up Amaz's brand, figure that out, and then maybe approach some other streamers that we like and just hey, if you join up with us, Amaz will teach you what we did with Amaz, right? And just kind of build up our own little small network. And when I mean small, I mean it might be limited to 5 people total over the career of that company, right?
Sure.
But extremely specialized, that type of stuff. That's something that Amaz and I have talked about a lot, because Amaz really likes Cryotic, and they're really close. And Cryotic kind of needs, he doesn't really need any of it, but he appreciates that type of stuff. And Amaz, he really likes a lot of the other big streamers. I think I've monetized Amaz better than anybody could have.
Yeah.
But also with that, I don't think I could do 3 people right now, right? Just the Amaz, it's so much work. I have a full-time job and it's just Amaz, right? So it's
yeah. So that was obviously a rumor that was going around too, just for months now, that you guys were transitioning from a competitive team to more of a streamer agency type of thing. Is that, that's pretty much what we're talking about, right? You're talking about
no. So this would be much different. It'd be more not so much an agency as opposed to something that builds up a brand, like an agent. So the agencies I know of in this space probably bring in $3 million in revenue, have 7 employees, and everyone makes $45,000 to $50,000 a year.
Yeah,
right. That's not a
big agency.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So these are the huge agencies in the space that are booking deals, right? I would pass on those jobs. That's not really something I'm interested in, right? I do a little bit of that for Amaz, but for the most part, we signed a deal. The contract signed for a year. I don't have to worry about it afterwards, right? So that job's 3 to 6 weeks out of my life every year, something like that. If you were to tell me to do that for the span of 10 people, I would just pass. That's really not worth too much.
Okay.
I guess. I mean, making $50,000 a year is cool, but I think I do a little bit better. Man, this is so raw.
Yeah,
sorry,
no, it's okay. It's I mean, what the most important thing is just I guess getting your thoughts out there and just finding out exactly what I guess the thought process is with just coming to this decision, because Archon's a big part of the community. This is literally was one of the first teams that originated in Hearthstone. Not to mention it is one of the biggest.
The
teams
second
in
team
Hearthstone,
that started, and
yeah,
I think both the top 2 teams really both the top 2 teams really started Hearthstone on Twitch, really did,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And then over the course of this last year, both teams lost interest, right? I think Tempo Storm kind of was like, hey, no, not. I'm not trying to knock
You can
anything
chime in whenever.
at all, right? Like at all. But I do feel like Tempest Storm and Archon kind of like slowed down on production a little bit. So they're all still streaming, they're all still doing stuff, but I think Tempest Storm made things really special very often, right? And I think Archon made things really special very often. I think those moments became kind of more and more distant, right? That's kind of the way that I want to
You
phrase
had
it.
less and less of them.
There's
Yeah,
less,
so
there's less of these special
fine.
things, special events and or
Right.
whatnot. Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, and that was just going to happen, right? Like when Amaz and Reyna take over like ownership roles, your time just goes away, and you do just start spending less time on the things you're passionate about, or maybe your passion switches to being the business owner.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're picking up other teams, and of course it's going to be more time away from Hearthstone and
more teams, more employees, more stress,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I mean, there's just, but yeah, that was definitely not a knock on Tempest Storm or anything like that. Didn't mean it if it came out that way.
Yeah, no, it was.
I think I could be like, I like everything about Tempest Storm. People be like, fuck you, Backspace. You don't know anything about Tempest Storm. And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
All right, so one big question I'm sure a lot of people are wondering just with this announcement is ATLC. So are these going to continue? I mean, this is an event that a lot of us in the community thought was one of the best events that was held in the Hearthstone community to date. And I think, Noxious, you were saying it's probably the most successful one outside of BlizzCon or just the
I
Blizzard
think so.
Championships, right?
But it's also because of the scale of it, right? Like we've never had anything else like on the same level. We've had a lot of really creative stuff coming out, like the Challenge Stone, the sealed format. Like we've had a lot of really cool stuff. But as far as the length of the event and the amount of hype that went behind it, I mean, it actually tried to make teams matter a lot, which was cool, because we hadn't seen enough of that. I feel at that point in Hearthstone. So after that, it became, people started outdoing themselves as far as the creativity of what they would do with events. And that was really cool to see. But I don't think there's ever been anything as big not coming from BlizzCon, let's say.
Right. Yeah. So what's the future of ATLC? Are we still going to see some of these events?
Well, I kind of want to talk about Noxious's point. After ATLC, right? ATLC kind of also helped ruin our team. It was really funny because we ran this event, right? And it was so successful that every single team picked up a team afterwards, right? Like every single team. Like Liquid went up to 3 or 4 players. Navi picked up a brand new team. Everyone was getting hyped up over like season 2 of ATLC, and then we were like, yeah, we're not running that right now. But then afterwards, my own players were like, hey, all these guys are getting picked up for more money. Can we have more money? And we're like, no. Like,
oh my god.
So
getting sniped too. Yeah.
I mean, I think ATLC was ATLC was so big in the community that actually made the community stronger. But yeah, moving forward, one of the things that me and Amaz argued a lot about was during ATLC 2 or whatever. I always tell him like, let's do it cheap or whatever, and Amaz wants to do it big. And that's like definitely the thing that he and I argue the most about. Yes, we're running another one. I don't know how to say that without spoiling things, I guess.
Yeah, just the historically, it's like leaks and stuff. We want to be as careful as possible.
Another one has been in the works for about 6 months, right? This one's going to be much different than the other ones. Right. We've talked to Blizzard about it multiple times. We've had conversations with like some of the bigger sponsors about it too. It kind of gets to the point where Amaz actually told me that if we're going to make an announcement, that he's going to make an announcement about how he wants to do ATLC. Timelines aren't set yet, but yeah, it's definitely happening. All right,
that's good news.
If I quit right now and I was there to help facilitate ATLC, it would still 100% happen. Like Amaz wants to do it, and if Amaz wants to do something, he just does it. So.
Okay.
So that's good news.
Yeah, it's definitely great news. I think a lot of people will be happy that continues. A question about just, I guess, general, what your thoughts are on owning a Hearthstone team. So we've talked a little bit about, just aspects of it so far already. But just question straight at you. Is it viable owning a Hearthstone team right now?
No. There's no way.
There's actually no way, or is it just very difficult?
So like, if you did the exact Tempo Storm structure or the Channel Fireball structure, or the Star City game structure,
which is
sure
explaining. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you get like some competitive players that make videos and you promote a product, right? Like you sell something. The thing is, like the Magic like version of that, Channel Fireball and Star City Games, which I assume is what Tempo Storm is a little bit based off of. Like they sell Magic cards and they make profit off of that because you have a bunch of pros telling people to play these cards, right? It's not a product that Hearthstone players get to sell. You're either selling your stream or you're selling a T-shirt, right? So no,
sure.
I don't really see it being too profitable right now.
I see.
Like Hearthstone in general, for the bigger teams, like Cloud9 to TSM, blah blah blah, they're forced to have a Hearthstone team because they're forced to have a team of everything, right? So for them, having like a promotional platform in a different game is obviously awesome. It has nothing to do with making profit on them now. It's something to do with attaching someone to a brand name, and 3 years later they'll watch the different game that their player is playing. So if you have a small team and you want to build a profit up, no, I don't see that happening. If you have a big team and you already have like 3 other teams, yeah, jump into Hearthstone. It's a good game, right?
Okay.
Pretty true.
You agree with that completely, Dan? Just
Yeah, like 95% of it. I think in a traditional sense, monetization in Hearthstone is really difficult to achieve, primarily because tournament EV is extremely low for most players. Therefore, the only way you can reliably monetize anything is through streaming, primarily because streaming is the best way to build a brand, and you can sell anything off of streaming. Crypt sells socks, for crying out loud. So you can just you can do anything. Yes, I mean, I got offered the same thing, like, you want to make Frodan socks? I'm like, I don't really want to get into that weird fetishes. But I think the interesting thing about owning a Hearthstone team is that there is monetization available. It's just that it's extremely difficult to do so, and it's almost not worth it because it's a very, very, very long run business model, which you're gonna have to suffer huge losses for the first few years, and no one can really suffer that because we're working with pennies compared to other teams. This is why Ray Knight got really pissed at listening to LCS owners whine, because he's like, at least you guys got money to do stuff. Like, we had to pinch our own pockets, maybe sell part of the team's ownership, maybe have to get investor or either get extremely lucky with the product in order to have this capital, which is the limiting factor to do anything. I'm like 90% sure that if Backspace and Amaz had $1.5 million to drop stuff and be willing to tank that much willingly, they'd be much more successful in what they're trying to achieve. And it applies to anybody. Capital is one of the biggest limiting factors, and that's why VC teams that move in with like big money from mainstream sports or media, entertainment, etc., they can do these things and they can take the loss because they see that in 5 years their teams will be worth 10 times more, and they could sell off of it or advertise off of it or even just sell it completely as a product.
Frodan just nailed that one.
But I think it's like this in like a lot of spheres, even beyond esports. Like, it's just truer. I think for Hearthstone, like in the esports scene, just because it was so, I don't want to say unexpected, but its growth kind of caught a lot of the people who were pursuing competitive titles by surprise. So I think a lot of it came down that you had to build it from the ground up. Hence, Temple Storm and Archon mattering so much. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very important to have alternate forms of revenue too, and selling product is obviously one of the big things that, like Backspace you were referring to. Tempo Storm obviously has a website that's very successful too. That is
great website.
Yeah, we're a community website where a lot of people go and put their decks and whatnot. So and that's really important to obviously generating any kind of revenue. Because, like you said, like Frodan was saying, the players just don't generate enough revenue unless they're one of the biggest streamers in the community. So, given that, like, how do you have an ATLC? Given that, and like, are we seeing near the end of I guess more of these organic teams, Hearthstone teams? We still see Luminosity like picking up actually highly skilled players. We still see the G2 team, obviously, doing their thing too. Like taking that approach of, again, picking up more skilled players or higher ranked players that don't necessarily stream or are as big as streamers as we've seen in the past. What's in the future for these guys? Backspace, what do you think?
Tough question. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to Steve from Luminosity multiple times. He's great team owner. Don't know why he's jumping into Hearthstone. His team looks really good. Right? He has like Jockey, Frozen, and Zalae. Is that correct? Is there anybody else I'm missing? Yeah, these all
Phone
these
tap.
players
Phone tap.
Muzzy?
Oh, phone tap.
Muzzy.
Yeah,
Muzzy.
all these players are
Muzzy
insane.
didn't get, yeah.
Like I said before, it's probably just like get their name into Hearthstone, tattoo their brand 3 years later. Hopefully something happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
They had
it's
one, and they-
because the way you sell.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that a lot of teams do. This is I don't want to say like who does it because it doesn't apply to everybody, but Hearthstone is one of the most watched games on Twitch. And what you can do is use Hearthstone's numbers as a whole and sell against it. You can say these many millions of people tune in to watch Twitch per month. These many people consume Hearthstone content. We have the top ranked Hearthstone players. This is how many people watch the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Logically, this is what the kind of advertising exposure you can get. What they're not selling is when guys like Chalky, Muzzy, Phone Tap, Frozen, they're fantastic players. I actually watch their streams a lot, but not many people do. So then when sponsors go in, they see that it's not actually all rainbows and roses. In fact, the scene's propped up by 20 people's minutes, not the top 200 players. So that's where the bubble bursts. There's actually a very tangible bubble in Hearthstone, and it's primarily because of how rich the 1% is. Not rich in terms of wealth, even though they are much more wealthy, but more rich in terms of the power, influence, the viewership that they get, and their presence compared to the 99%. It's extremely sharp, and it's almost non-existent in any other game, maybe except Overwatch. I think Seagull is probably like the only person in the top 1% there. But like, it's that kind of stark contrast between like the difference between tier 1 and tier 2 in terms of a brand's presence or personality is such a sharp drop off that investment in Hearthstone is extremely difficult for any outsider. Therefore, you have to sell against the scene's numbers in order to be able to enter into it. So that's where I'm assuming Luminosity is placing their bets. I think they're also kind of placing their bets based on the fact that Hearthstone's exposure towards the end of the year is actually really high because of things like the Hearthstone World Championship.
Short term.
Like Luminosity is guaranteed like 3 spots or something, or two or three spots in the last call. So they have a pretty good chance to go to BlizzCon. And if they win the championship and then they do well at DreamHack, I mean, that's pretty good for them for a short-term contract if that's what they want to do.
Right.
And that might actually be something that happens very often. Maybe Na'Vi sees that no one from Na'Vi can go to the Hearthstone World Championship. So they're like, yeah, maybe we just don't do it this time, and then we come back later. You might actually see this be a recurring thing, unless
it's almost just like slapping a patch on somebody, like somebody in poker, a World Series of Poker, just slap a patch on them while they're doing well, type of thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely. Because it's so hard to find sure bets in this scene. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I guess given that, I mean, you're basically saying that a lot of these individuals, and it's something that I've been thinking for a long time too, is just that the streamer brands are just much bigger in the eyes of the community too. Like I don't actually, there's not, Archon and Tempest were probably only two team brands that had any kind of impact on the community. But the big brands are the Amazes and the Crips, and the Reynas.
If you took 10,000 random people that played Hearthstone that watched Twitch, just put them in a poll, and you asked them who the best players in the world were, it would go in order of Crip, right? Then Amaz, Reyna, Trump, right? Like, those are the best players in the world right now, right? So I mean, I've even had this conversation with Amaz where he's like somebody randomly emails him and he's like, hey, we want you to put together like a video series where you explain like a deck in great detail, and we'll give you like X number of dollars. And the month's like, no, dude, I'm not good at this game anymore. I'm like, no, you are. Like everyone thinks you're the best, right? Like,
numbers, surely you are. It's one of those. I mean, it's kind of a disconnect too between again the whole advertisement world and the player world. Like they're very different. So makes sense.
All right. So what's the future plans for you, Backspace?
Oh Jesus! I'm gonna get through this month. I mean, I had to move all of this to Maz's new place. The
house is closed now, right? Like you guys.
Yeah. Two of the production guys are moving with us because Maz still needs them. I mean, just for day-to-day stuff, like even just YouTube videos and stuff. I'm gonna go down there for a little bit. I think I'm not too sure how long. But yeah, I have no clue. I'm gonna get through this month and figure it out, I guess.
Just like every other team manager in business. They don't know what's going to happen next month. It's true.
Yeah.
Me included, man. Honestly, the real truth behind teams in this space is that no one really knows what they're doing. They're just pivoting strategies every few months because
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
how fast the scene changes. No one really knows. You can make year-long plans, you can make 5-year plans, but those are going to go out the window. And just
Yeah, I mean, like last year, one of the reasons why there's so much content was that we had like 4 really big sponsors just battling each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing money at you, trying to get you to run tournaments and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like, and that kind of died down this year, like a little bit. I mean, there's still sponsors out there. They just want, less money involved, and I mean, it happens. So
How much?
Frodan's right.
How much of it is just because just there hasn't been many events to even show? I know the viewership has been down. Does it stem a lot from that? Maybe just the viewership for Hearthstone is lower
Absolutely
than it used to be?
not. I don't want to sound cocky at all, but I do think the 2 big companies that did, or actually there's 3, because I really like a Seed Story Cup, but like Tempo Storm, Archon, and Seed Story Cup. Tempo Storm and Archon just kind of lost a little bit of interest in running tournaments. We were the people kind of telling people how to run tournaments, right? Like, I mean, Archon, we ran a tag team tournament, right? I still, to this day, think it's the best tournament we've ever run. No casters, just 2 players versus 2 players, and they commentated to each other. And like they just talked about their plays, and then on the other stream was the other team, right? Blizzard based a tournament off of this, like 4 or 5 months later, with no credit to us, right? Like they did their collegiate event where it's like 3v3 or whatever. Like, I mean, without Tempo Storm and Archon like telling people like, hey, this is what's fun to do in Hearthstone, Hearthstone's content just kind of dropped. Like the basic average tournament where there's like, and we have 16 players and they're playing for $8,000 and he made it all the way up through the ranks. Like, this is boring now. Like,
solid Frodan impression.
I don't know if that was like a hybrid between Frodan and Admirable.
Yeah, it was admirable. It was more
It
admirable.
was a hybrid. Wow. Okay.
Way more admirable.
I can see the memes coming now. Hybrid of.
But yeah, like
Frodan.
that, it gets boring. Like I don't even watch them all the
totally
way through
agree.
anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
But I mean, I legit watched every single Tempo Storm tournament. I mean, I never missed one. Like, and I watched every single one of my own tournaments, and I thought they were good. So, and Seed Story Cup is amazing.
Yeah,
I love Take, and all of his stuff is really good. So.
yeah, and to be fair, like I don't think Take's tournament gets the views it should get too. Like I think that that tournament
I agree.
really deserves probably double what he gets.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
G35 was insane.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I
like,
wish
crazy.
I'd been there.
Yeah.
Good lord.
that looked
Take
like
is
That was like
so
the one
fun.
time I couldn't go. And like, oh god.
The dude in the
I think-
mask. The dude in the mask just did it for me, man. the guy that was, I forgot the name. What was his name? The guy that was
Horus.
Horus. That's what it was. Oh
dude.
god, that was.
You don't fuck with Egyptian divinities.
That's
You just don't.
true that.
I can't make the next Seed Story Cup. I already started talking to them about the next one because I helped them plan a lot.
Okay.
I helped the Take TV guys plan a lot of the event every time, and it's kind of sad because I've been there since the beginning, but I can't go next one.
No.
My sister's getting married, so I can't.
Disaster.
Gosh.
I only have
Postpone.
I only have one sibling, so I have to.
Oh.
Okay.
I guess that's acceptable. Family is always first, right? Okay. Well, from a standpoint of, like, one last question. So from a standpoint of sponsors, they're still there though for these Hearthstone events. Is it really just a matter of people doing them?
Yeah,
Or,
they are. I think right now the sense is that some things are pulling out, which is just kind of natural life cycle of just any ecosystem. I'm not going to pretend like everything is unicorns and farting rainbows right now, but I think it's just very natural for people to try to get into the scene and then they just don't see it work out and then they pull out. So they see Navi, they see all these other things, and they're going to assume that everything is going badly. And it's also kind of confirmed by the fact that people aren't really happy about the current state of Hearthstone, so which we'll talk about a lot later. But I think right now there are a lot of sponsors that still want to get involved because okay, like let me ask you something. Do you guys and I say this all the time to like Blizzard, to a lot of organizers. Do you understand how sick Hearthstone has to be as a potential as an esport? Can you?
Yeah, I can.
I completely agree.
Absolutely
Absolutely.
understand it.
Can you tap into it? Okay, let me ask you.
Of course.
Name a single esport that can be competed at the highest level of professional play and you can be eating without skipping a beat.
Oh my god.
Name another one.
Come
You can't.
on.
So you're telling me that there's no possible ways, or you can be drinking a beverage. And I know this sounds really stupid, but think about it. If you're really trying to think about the capabilities and potential of Hearthstone if we can actually achieve a very good, sustainable, professional ecosystem of good tournament play, good very good viewership, etc. There's so much room for sponsor growth that it just blows my mind. But people really don't think about this because they think, wow, how do I sell a keyboard to an iPad user who just never plays games with their keyboard? These are the things that we really think about. And then when I pitch
totally
these
agree
things,
with
people
Totally.
are like,
oh my god,
oh my
Frodan,
god, you're a genius.
Frodan's
And I'm
like
like,
spot on right now.
No, it's absolutely.
it's really not that hard. Like,
Well, let's talk about how many esports you can actually play just on mobile. You know, like
Right, like just baseline. There's like what Clash
But
Royale,
Bangalore
now,
needs
which
both.
is
I like Clash a lot, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
mean,
good game.
it
Clash,
is, but
Clash requires both free hands to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Hearthstone, you literally could be snacking the entire time, and you're not even selling out because you just happen to be hungry, and you're still playing at a really high level. Like, actually, food kind of helps you process stuff because chewing kind
Ask
of
Stan
gets blood
Sivka.
through your head.
well, I mean, business talk. I mean,
it's stupid, man.
The
but people don't do
demographic
this.
the demographic for Hearthstone is actually wider than any of the other esports too. So, even more product potential in terms of selling, and advertisers or whatnot. So yeah, absolutely. Just as the sport itself, for sure, we haven't even come close to. I mean, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. I still think there's like a ton of things you can do in Hearthstone, and then on top of that, just the potential for revenue from advertisers is, again, like I think we barely even touched it. When I like talk about some of these agents or whatnot and like some of the companies that they're working with, I mean, we're still talking about like these tiny companies that are trying to advertise like on all these streams. And Frodan, I'm sure you've been, and both Noxious, you guys have been approached, and Backspace, probably the team's been approached by all these different types of orgs, and none of them are huge yet, and the viewership that Hearthstone gets definitely warrants like sponsorships from large companies.
Sure.
They just don't know about Hearthstone. That's the problem
I mean,
right now. And
kind of. They in this, this is probably a bad topic. Team owners are not just team owners, right? Like consultants kind of teach people about the space, right? Like, so when you go pitch to a big company, some of the team owners probably don't understand. Like if you just go to a company and you're like, yeah, we'll give you ad rotations. Okay, well, they have a million different ways that ad rotations are strictly better on radio and TV, right? I mean, they just are. You have more of them. It's cheaper. Facebook is like pennies on the dollar. YouTube is pennies on the dollar. Like, so if you don't go pitch why a company should actually be a part of your stream, your brand, they're just not going to join, right? I think Amaz right now might have like 1 or 2 sponsors, something like that. We're in contracts with every single one of our old sponsors, switching it from the team thing to the Amaz thing.
yeah,
Right? So we're transferring all of our contracts from like Team Archon to Amaz. It's taking some time. I mean, it takes a little bit of time. But I mean, last month or 2 months ago, we had 11 sponsors, something like that.
wow, okay, that's good.
Right, like we're one of the most sponsored. Amaz is like literally one of the most sponsored streamers on Twitch. So I think some of the team owners don't really understand how to pitch to sponsors, or they set their values way too high.
Yeah.
Like way too high. Like like last year is like much different. Like some of the sponsors that immediately came in and just offered you a huge chunk of money.
Sure.
I think this year's kind of died down a little bit.
Yeah.
So in comparisons to like what we made from one sponsor last year, we had 3 sponsors to make that up, right?
Yeah.
And we're still making about the exact same money on the Mazda stream and all that type of stuff. But yeah, as far as like the bigger companies coming in, none of these big companies have somebody that's like fucking join esports. Like they might know what it is, but there's not like a big consulting company out there other than pretty much Twitch that's pitching to these big companies.
It doesn't even necessarily have to be like long-term esports. Even just like a single event, like Frodan, you're mentioning eating, right? Tostitos, right? They did that big Twitch thing,
Oh,
like the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
bowl thing. Like,
I mean,
couldn't we do an
Honda
eating
sponsored
contest?
the Red Bull
We
event.
could do an
Red Bull
eating
event, yeah,
contest
Honda
or
actually
something
did.
with Hearthstone.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
that's
can.
the kind of thing.
I mean,
it's
this to kind of wrap up this topic, because I feel like we're getting a little bit off track here, is that there is money to be made in Hearthstone. People know some people know how to, some people really want to, but it's really difficult because Hearthstone's still extremely young. There's not an established system that works right now. Every year, HCT is extremely different because Blizzard's trying to figure out what works for them. Not only that, but third-party tournament organizers are still in the process of fleshing things out. I think in about 2-3 years, DreamHack's Grand Prix system will probably be a lot better than it is even right now. And I think DreamHack is probably the best thing that we have in terms of open tournaments.
Yeah, it's also
Absolutely.
Yeah, Geico's pretty good too, but they also need time to flesh out. Maybe they don't even want to do it next year because it's so hard to get ROI with open players and whatnot. It's really tricky, but I think in time, the people that stick through the worst times, which is right now, the maturation process where we go through puberty as a scene, is going to be the hardest. But once we get past it, it's going to be awesome. I keep saying that in the year 2020, Hearthstone's going to be freaking sweet. But until then, it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better, in my opinion.
Yeah, Frodan knows his shit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Backspace. Well, I'm going to let you go because I know you're going to making the rounds here. I know just kind of with the announcement and all, but I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hopefully I flushed out some of the rambling in this one.
Absolutely.
Go do some better ones later. All right, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good luck in everything you do, man.
See you, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with 3 of us going on and talking about the current state of Hearthstone.